Good afternoon everyone, welcome to my channel. We're going to be looking at 6 cars today from the Assetto Corsa Competizione game. The first one is the Gallardo, which is sort of, in other words, a bit of a back marker. It's just kind of a separate series. It's not as quick as the GT3s at the front, and this is quite an old car really. And the idea behind this video is, in the 6 cars that we're driving, we are going to be doing a bit of a cockpit go through, and then we're going to do basically one hot lap. Now, I've just come back from my holiday, so pretty much every single lap that you see with all these cars is my sort of first attempt with the latest 1.01. So if they are a very rough lap, there's nothing too heavy, nothing too spectacular. And what we're going to do is I'm going to do this over 3 videos. We're going to see kind of which is the best car, how they all perform, and we're going to put them all together at the end with lap times and see where we're at. So Gallardo, don't really expect too much from it. To be fair, it handles pretty nicely, to be honest. It's just not going to be as quick as you'd want it to be. But it's quite stable. On the outlap, coming up to this corner here, this quite fast one, I completely lost it on the rear end. But on the second attempt, it was perfectly fine. But yeah, it's not too floaty. It pretty much kind of sticks to the road. What I also just to say is all of these laps were done in the safe setup mode, so we're literally going by a bog standard setup, nothing fancy. It's how Kunos have basically set up the car, so it's just worth remembering that. Coming to the final part of the circuit, also I've noticed that in some cars now, the left quarter, so you can see where the roll cage is there, it's quite obscure actually, so you can't really see too much of the corner. We've gone through and we did a 201.2. Moving on to the Jaguar G3. Again, some of you might be like, well, I've already seen this is quite old, you know, it's an old car. Well, yeah, it is, but for those that are quite new to the channel or the game, it's just worth having a quick look around in VR mode. I have driven this car obviously a number of times before, the Jaguar. It sounds really good, it sounds really good, but on certain tracks it's an absolute nightmare to drive. Paul Ricard, it's a nightmare to drive. On safe setup mode, it's just, oh god, it doesn't go well at all. You'll see on this lap that it's really, really scruffy. It oversteers, it understeers. The braking is quite poor. It doesn't seem to want to go into the corner very well. It just wasn't sitting right at all during the lap at all. So yeah, a really bad lap, and if I've been honest, the lap time is not going to be great. I could probably do quicker, but in this particular lap it was not good at all.
Cut detected.
So we're coming up to the final part of the circuit. Run quite wide onto those curbs with just a few more corners to go. Don't get me wrong, I do love the car. It's a real driver's car. It has you thinking all the time, but for some reason around Paul Ricard, it was just, yeah, not good at all. Not good. So end of that lap. onto the Lexus RCF, which is a new car, and you can see a relatively simple dash. Again, some sort of relatively simple buttons, and down there is actually quite simple as well compared with some of the other cars. So it's a quite neat setup that they've got in the car. It's yeah, if you actually take the actual championship itself, it's not the most successful car out there, but I think Fabien Barthez, the ex-footballer, is currently driving it. But there's only a couple of cars in the field that actually run this car, so it's not the best in the series, but it drives quite similar to the Jaguar, but it's just a bit more planted, so it is quite nice to drive. It does make you work a bit for your money, but actually it really does pretty well. I'd like to be able to drive that in the future with a more decent setup, something a bit more stable, so I look forward to sort of tweaking that. But I think that might actually be a nice car to go with, really. But I found that it was pretty much one of the fastest on the day. You'll see when we come up, but it sort of turns in where it needs to. The braking's quite effective as well. And yeah, overall, I was quite chuffed with that. So, into the last corner, just getting about the apex. Actually, I did that quite well. That's going to go through at a 158.5, so not too bad. Honda, or the Acura NSX GT3 in the Castrol livery. Again, there's a few of these running in the championship. You see it quite. I feel, even though you set up the VR in a way that it's, you're sort of sat in the car and you look down and all your body and everything seems to work, dimension-wise, you actually do feel you sit very high, but also very close to the front of the wheel. So it's a very strange driving position to be in. The car is remarkably stable. I found that sort of trying to lose the rear end, so to speak, was reasonably difficult. I was quite surprised actually by how well it drives, to be honest. Everything for me in particular, that I want from a car, which is stable, not over or understeers, and it's good on the brakes. This kind of car seemed to have it, and it actually felt quite quick as well. So yeah, I was quite happy with this. Whether or not I'll go ahead and use it in the future, I don't know. I don't really know how quick it is. In the actual GT Championship itself, it's not the quickest out there. Again, as we come through these we went very wide, just about missed the curb, the cones there. But yeah, overall, this ended up, if I'm being honest with you, was the quickest of the 6 cars that I tested in this video. But the question is it going to be the quickest of all of the cars on the grid? We will find out. Last corner, through we go, and the lap time is going to be a 1:50.9. 6.3. So that goes quickest. Lamborghini Huracan ST. This is the Super Trofeo Lamborghini. So effectively, they've got their own championship. It runs sometimes in parallel with the Blancpain GT Championship. So it was at Silverstone in their own race series. So every car is the same. It was missing from Brands Hatch. So yeah, it's pretty much based on the Huracan GT3. The difference being is that they do change and modify some of the car, so it is meant to be slightly slower. I don't know if I'm being honest, I have no idea whether or not people will use this in comparison with the other Huracan GT3, the one that Bortoletti uses, for example. I don't think they will. It is a lot. It feels slower. It drives better. I'll be honest. It drives better than the other Huracan, the quicker one. But certainly, it's effectively a separate championship, which you could effectively run in the game, where you all drive this same car. Unfortunately, livery-wise, unless the game's going to come up with some sort of custom livery, you're all going to end up looking the same. But I was more than happy driving this. It just stuck. It's just not quick. That's the only downside to it. It's just not quick. Getting a bit of oversteer there. Sort of struggling a bit with trying to see in sort of the left hand corner of the car there with that sloping roof line. As we're into the final corner. Looks like we're going to hit the 2-minute mark. And it's a 2 minute and 2 seconds dead. Porsche 911. One of the sort of championship contenders, really. And no matter kind of what game I tend to use this car in, it just seems to be a bit of a struggle to keep it on the road. It's really not user friendly. I find it to be quite tail happy, and this seemed also to follow that pattern as well. It just seemed very on edge all the time. You're sort of feathering the throttle a lot. It's not as stable as I'd like it to be, but it does sound good though, if anything. So yeah, if you like your cars to sound good, the Porsche's got a very distinctive engine sound. It held that corner quite nicely. See it slightly drifting, just trying to place it as best we can. But maybe with a more stable setup it might work better. Found it to be, as you can see, there was a lot of steering turning for that to try and get that round the corner. I think that will favour some people. Some people just like Porsches and they'll drive a Porsche every single day of the week. But as we come across the finish line, this is going to be a 1:58.9. So it although it felt slow, actually, when you look at it, it was not too bad. But there you go. There's the top 6 for today. Honda on top, and round 2 will be coming shortly.